do it because it helps in explaining how the real estate tax relief works. The capital expenditure drives the assessed value north. So the assessed value goes up. There's an incremental value created at the tax parcel. Let's say that $1 million creates $500,000 in increased assessed value. There is where the municipality can partner with the company. The $1 million that was currently being assessed is locked in. It can never be touched. That's known as the baseline valuation. In between the $1 million and $1.5 million number is the incremental value that's been created. That is where the town of North Reading can partner with the company and provide real estate tax relief of between 5 and 100% for a term of between 5 and 20 years. And that has a name. That's called a tax increment financing agreement, commonly referred to by its acronym, or a TIF. And that is miscommunicated often, but there is no tax dollars that the municipality forgoes per se, because if that capital expenditure does not happen or would not happen, then the $1 million that was currently being assessed is collected. This is a tough one for a lot of municipalities, but the second contribution for the municipality is that the town agrees to forego all personal property taxes at the tax parcel. However, what we'd like to tell municipalities is that most of the companies that we are working with, and not all of them, but most of them, at least 70% of them, are manufacturers. And manufacturers are exempt from personal property taxes anyways. So that is not a tax that the town would have collected in the first place. And then the last piece of the three-way partnership is the state. And the state provides a 5% investment tax credit on all depreciable assets with a shelf life of 4 years or longer. That is a quick way of summarizing the Economic Development Incentive Program. There is one other piece, and that is a 10% abandoned building renovation deduction. If there are any buildings in North Reading that have been vacant, at least 75% vacant for 24 months, then that particular company can be eligible for a 10% deduction, not a credit, a deduction, which is less valuable to the company, but it is another incentive that the town may be able to afford a manufacturing company, or it doesn't have to be a manufacturing company, it can be any company, if you will. But that's the program, and that's the premise for our discussion, if you will. But what would North Reading have to do? That's the question that the town administrator asked me. North Reading would have to become an economic target area, which currently North Reading is not. And that would require some demographic research, which the planning agency would assist with. Your planning department would have to do some work, and I would also assist Heidi in that endeavor. That would open up a couple of agencies' products to the town of North Reading. As an economic target area, the state's lending agency is known as Mass Development. And Mass Development has products whereby they can lend to manufacturers, they can provide brownfields assessment money on properties, they can work with life sciences and renewable energy companies in high-risk situations on occasions. But all of their products have to go into economic target areas, with certain exceptions. And in fact, one of those exceptions happened in one part of North Reading, so I just want to say that so that there's an acknowledgement that there can be exceptions. And there's another agency that must lend into economic target areas, and it's known as Community Development Finance Corp. And they provide the hardest to find capital, which is working capital for struggling corporations, mostly manufacturers. So those are two other very important products that would be opened up to North Reading, and that would be for your incumbent manufacturing base, if you will, or your incumbent commercial base. But the economic target area designation would also provide North Reading with the opportunity, in my opinion, to compete really hard for some of the companies that we're working with. And we work with companies not just in the Merrimack Valley or the Northeast area, not just in the Boston area, but they can be as far away as California or Europe. We have trade reps in Germany, we have trade reps in China, we have trade reps in Mexico City and Latin America. So when they're looking at Massachusetts, they have no roots, they have no ties, they want the best deal. And we can obviously compete better when we can provide a full package of incentives. And I'm certainly open, at this point, stop there, and I'd like to see if there's any questions.
Let's see, go ahead. I'll go next.
Just in relation to, first of all, thanks for coming. Tough commute?
Yeah, this never happens.
This
to
never
me.
happens to you.
Yeah.
So you've got all night? Yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
I told my wife I was in Springfield, so.
Yeah. Just in relation to the tax incentives, a couple of things. As far as the 5-year to 20-year maximum, is that negotiable by the deal? In other words, by the project? As opposed to
Yes, that is
carte blanche, this is what we're going to offer?
It is case specific.
Okay.
And it is, generally speaking, the board would designate the town administrator and a member of your, do you have a subcommittee for finance or something, or economic development? It is a negotiation, and I can show you some comparable deals as they would arise.
All right, so it is on a case-by-case basis. And then as far as the personal property tax exemption, is that forever, or is that a phased-in,
No,
phased out?
it's only for the life of your tax increment financing agreement.
So the 5-year or 20-year?
But just so as not to be disingenuous, generally speaking, by the time the tax increment financing agreement expires, the equipment has been depreciated substantially. So
Sure, but there's also new investments as
Sure,
this is an ongoing
yes.
business, and finally, you go in there and
reassess.
reassess. But do we assess, do communities assess what's in there anyway, so that we know what savings are
Yep.
quantified for the
Yep,
business?
and we
or-
build in inflation also.
And they build it in so... and-
So even from year one, the delta on your tax collections goes up because of the investment.
Okay. And then the other question I had was in relation to the economic targeted area. You referenced some demographics, which I don't think we come close to meeting.
Well,
So I mean, I guess if you could
challenge,
help me
but
with
we
that
will
one
work
in
on
relation to the town of North
You
Reading.
don't have that list with you,
I do, actually, it's in the
I
presentation.
think- Well, yeah,
do you? Right, okay. Steve,
so I mean, there's a significant amount of hurdles to,
There's one of 11 qualifying criterias, but in speaking with the town administrator, I personally would suggest, and by the way, we haven't started
it's on
this
page
research
3,
because
top of page 3?
because obviously this body is the, I have it printed, must tell you, we don't have a lot of money at the state, so I use my daughter's printer, and I can barely see it.
Yeah, but it's at the top of page 3 of those 11 criteria.
One of the 11 qualifying criteria that I think could potentially bring us to the number is the 20% vacancy rate. And the reason I say that is because there's 500,000 square feet at the J.T. Berry site that can be counted. If that is not the case, then it would be under the subsection J criteria, which is number 11, I believe. I'm doing this off of memory. Yeah, number 11, 200 acres to support 3 million square feet of commercial and industrial, because we know that you are already at 500,000 square feet at the J.T. Berry site. Now, that doesn't mean you have to build that out. That just means that you could conceivably
Well, we don't
get
have
to
200 acres, though. That whole site was only...
No, it doesn't have to be in 1 acre, one parcel.
One
rather.
site, okay.
It doesn't have to be in one parcel. It can be just in the whole town for commercial purposes. And it doesn't have to be permitted, and it never has to be built upon.
But for those communities such as ours that may not hit any of these, are we out of luck?
If you don't qualify under any of those criteria, yes, sir. We've put Lexington in the program,
You have.
yeah.
Well, then we're expecting big things from you.
You know, there's some research to be done, but if there's a will, there will be a way. We'll figure it out. I do believe that there's, under criteria 11.
Yes, sir, thank you for coming. Other than and I'm not minimizing it, other than the time of our Community Planning Development Committee in Heidi, is there a cost to the town? Is there a cash cost?
You know, sir, I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
It's not a good answer.
Truthfully, no. A case can be made that if you believe a company would come here anyways, then you can say, yes, why are we giving this real estate tax relief away? But I can document, although it's confidential, we can certainly talk. I've communicated to the chairman that there's been 3 high-profile Fortune 500 companies that have looked on Concord Street and decided against North Reading. They've chosen not to come here, so.
Yeah, maybe I phrased that question wrong, I'm sorry. I didn't mean what we would not get if a company came in. I meant, is there a cost to the town to join
No.
or attempt
No,
to
sir.
join this program?
No, sir.
That's what the question was.
Absolutely not.
So I mean, if we did decide to go forward, and even though I'm sure we may, but we did not make it, it's a wash. We would not owe the state anything, or,
That's correct. And I don't believe you would have to pay the planning agency, would you? No.
Well, could you just elaborate as to why these places said no to North Reading?
yeah, that's true.
Good question.
What was the,
One of them chose New Hampshire. Okay, so,
Okay.
and that's something that I fight that border war every day. It wasn't a retail situation. It was very shocking to us.
Was that the manufacturer you talked to
No,
us about?
no, it wasn't. One of them hasn't made a definitive decision, but one definitive decision they have made is it's not gonna be North Reading.
but why? You know, what's the,
That I can't exactly say without, I will do my best to put you in the room with these folks and you can ask them.
yeah, I mean,
Because
I'd be
we're still
curious,
working
because,
with
I mean,
them
how
in a-
else are we going to?
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, how are we gonna be able to address, what we
And
need
even
in
put you
relation
in
to
a room with
economic
the-
development if we don't know the people who are out there, the players who are actually looking to locate in Massachusetts and in this area and in this region, and they're looking at us and they're considering us and they say, thanks, but no thanks. Yeah, I, for one, would like to know, what do we have to do?
Yeah, I don't believe it was, in no scenario has it been the lack of sewer, if that's what you're getting at, just yet.
Yeah.
Because that precludes them from even looking at this point. There'll be no manufacturers or heavy manufacturing
Right,
looking
until you get the
at
sewer.
the town at this point in time. When we get a lot of inquiries, and our companies might say, you know, some of them, life science companies, or biopharma, I should say, not medical devices, they use a lot of water, up to 1 million gallons a day or more. And we wouldn't have them look at the Berry site, or, because then the purchase of water would just put us cost-wise in a different area where we know we wouldn't be competitive.
But if they buy it from us or they buy it from the MWRA, I can't imagine the MWRA is any cheaper than we are, really. The cost of doing business in relation to
It's
cost
the
of water.
discharge that's
Right.
actually very
Okay.
expensive. Right?
Okay. But yeah, if you could get us in touch
We'll
with some of those
definitely-
people, I'd be
definitely
very
work on it.
interested in finding out exactly what, you know, what is it that we're lacking, and how can we enhance our image and our ability to attract them.
We do have a very high-profile company that's still, as I understand it, very interested in North Reading. There's a parking shortage, if you can believe that, that's holding things up in North Reading, and my suggestion was build a deck. And that would obviously solve a lot of problems, so they're contemplating it. It just drives the cost up.
Sean?
Steve asked one of my questions, but another question. How long would it take us, in your experience, to get an ECA in place?
Well, the hardest part is the research, the demographic research, which I would defer to the planning agency for, because I know that the town has the ability to call on them. But I would believe it can be done in the September, October meeting. The Economic Assistance Coordinating Council is the state board that approves these applications, and they meet, the next time they meet is in September, then September, October, November, December. That would be the meeting schedule to end the year, and I see no reason why it couldn't be in place for September or October. And at that point, then the town can really market itself